We're bringing in Laura Ingraham of LifeSet, upcoming host of Fox News' 10 p.m. show premiering this month, The Ingraham Angle. And Laura, this is baptism by fire, right? I mean, as you get set to launch your show, this is an overwhelming story.
Yeah, well, I think in seeing those video clips of the true heroes of the worst mass shooting we've seen in American history, you do remember in this time of great evil, there's an enormous amount of evil in the world, that really is the best of who we are as people, regardless of all politics, regardless of who you are, where you live in the world. This is what we're called to do. It's hard. I mean, to actually throw yourself on someone else's body is what military are trained to do. And I know we had a lot of military in that audience. Yeah, but that is what we're called to do every day. We kind of forget about it in the left-right fight that we all, referee or are in ourselves. But we are called to do that on a daily basis. And to see that those people under fire, not knowing where the bullets were coming, first instinct of natural instinct is to run. But the truly selfless people who are physically able did a lot more. That's inspiring. I was like, what would I do in that situation? You hope you would try to help other people.
Mm-hmm. Steve, I think you have a question.
Well, I was just going to ask Laura, out here, I arrived here yesterday when the sun was up, and it was a beautiful day. But it was the darkest day in Las Vegas history, and people are just trying to figure out, why did he do it? And, of course, the first inclination yesterday when we were on the air in New York was it terrorism? Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. You're trying to find a connection to ISIS or Al-Qaeda or something with everything bad that happens these days. And right now, it doesn't look like there's any connection at all. His motive? We don't know at this point.
Well, and people want to believe there's some explanation for this. And that is also the natural human impulse. But it could be as simple as this man flipped, something inside of him flipped, and he could have been, in his own way, isolated without anyone knowing it. He could have been some guy who felt deeply lonely. On the inside, on the outside, his neighbors saying, "Oh, he seemed pretty normal. He's kind of quiet, but he liked to gamble." You never really know what's going on in someone else's head, especially in this day and age.
64-year-old, a very wealthy guy who loved to gamble. His girlfriend evidently liked to gamble as well. Yeah. And they do believe, according to some local writers out there writing for the Las Vegas Journal, they think that room was comped. They say he was a high-stakes roller. Yeah. They believe he got those two rooms.
They do that.
Happens regularly.
And they know each other, and they know him. But here's the other thing. Bin Laden, we knew who to hate. You saw Sandy Hook. We knew that mutant living in his basement. We don't even know enough about him to hate him yet. Right. We know what he did. We hate what he did. But we can't figure out how to stop it until we find out why he did it.
Well, and there are some things, again, it's not a satisfying response. There are some things you cannot stop. I mean, we say, well, is there a government solution to every human problem? I would say no. And I think we also should think about what we do on a daily basis as individuals to each other. I also think we should remember that we've done a lot to kick Christianity, God, to the curb in our society, in the way we treat each other, in some government policy, in our schools. We can talk a lot about climate change and all these wonderful things in school, but we can't say a simple prayer or even have a moment of silence in a lot of schools today. That's just not good. We have to get back to the basics in human society, and I think our country is hurting in a lot of ways, and people on the left are upset, people on the right are upset. You have to understand there is not a government solution for every problem. And a lot of people on the left are like, oh, if we only did this, background checks. He would have passed a background check. Oh, if we only outlawed machine guns, guess what? They're outlawed except for grandfathered machine guns, very difficult to get. So that wouldn't have helped. And when pressed, a lot of these congressmen, I saw them on other networks this morning, they were stumbling. Wait, what specifically would have stopped this? They actually have no constitutional answer.
You mentioned religion. We all have our cross to bear, right? We all are sinners, so we fall short. This guy, his brother said, did not have religion in his life. You wear your cross. I heard you last night say you went to St. Patrick's to pray. There were a lot of people there lighting candles and praying. And then I heard you say, Big and Rich, when they sang on stage, God Bless America, an hour before some of them were killed to go meet God, that you said that was such a gift to their families. And I agree with you. The president yesterday was consoling our nation, and it is so nice to hear our president quoting scripture, because I agree with you. We need to go back to that as families, because I feel sorry for this guy. I know that's awful to say, because he didn't have God.
No, well, he didn't. It was some kind of deep vacuum, and without a moral center in our lives, and again, we're all sinners, we all fall. without that moral center, what do you compare your behavior to?
I don't know. I see a lot of people that don't go to church and never crack the Bible who are some of the best people, and they don't seem to yearn for anything. I know what you're saying about going for religion, and that's great, but there's a lot of people out there watching that aren't very religious. You know, they say then
how's that worked out for us as a country? I mean, all I would say is, how has it worked out for us, a country where secular humanism and progressivism has supplanted the understanding that without virtue there is no real freedom. Freedom without virtue is chaos.
But there's a lot of people don't go to church. They don't
Brian,
open up fire.
Obviously, people seize on that comment and say, "Oh, they're saying that people aren't religious." And that's not what we're saying. We're talking about this individual. We don't know what motivated him. We're just talking about in society at large, there is a vacuum in public life where everyone's afraid to say what the truth is. The truth is there is evil in the world, and in the absence of a moral and virtue center, lots of bad things can happen. Not always, but sometimes.
Just to deal Steve in. Steve, for example, if you look at his dad's an evil guy, reportedly. He is wanted. He escapes from jail. He's just a terrible person. This guy showed no indications that he had the genes of his father so far up until 2 days ago.
Right. We don't know what the motivation is. But going back to your earlier point, Laura, guardian angels. How many of them were in the field behind me after that guy shot so many people? I mean, 500 people went to the hospital, 59 killed. But we were talking earlier about how these guys who were trained by the military knew to stick their finger into a bullet hole to stop the wounding, to save a life. There were so many guardian angels out here 36 hours ago that saved lives. And that just says a lot about where we are, because when the bullets were raining down from that building, everybody was running this way, but instead they were running back at the shots.
And the images that the survivors of this hideous attack will take with them for the rest of their lives, the worst of humanity, the most grisly images, and yet the best of people. And in our own ways, we all live with this duality in our lives. And I do believe that it's a time for us, Republicans and Democrats, to go back to first principles. Government cannot solve every problem.
They can't stop hurricanes either, and that's another part. It's all really sadly related. I won't bring this up. I was stunned to see that Hillary Clinton weighed in immediately, saying the crowd fled at the sound of the gunshots. Imagine if the shooter had a silencer, which the NRA wants to make easier to get. Our grief isn't enough. We can put aside politics aside, stand up to the NRA and work together to try to stop this from happening. Really? Stand up to someone using, if this is an automatic weapon?
Yeah, well,
he bought it, he either altered that gun illegally, but he bought it, if it was a semi-automatic, he bought it legally.
Well, again, I mean, the politics of it is so inane at this point, but Hillary Clinton spoke before she knew any of the facts. You can't really put a silencer on an AR-15. Melts the barrel. It's not what she said it is. And immediately, I was on the radio yesterday when this was happening, and all the people who actually know guns, like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Just a level of ignorance, and I found it to be despicable. If Hillary Clinton wants to run for president again and take the Second Amendment to the ballot box, I think she should do it. Everyone who's upset, who thinks we could pass gun laws to stop an evil person from killing a lot of people with a car, a van, a gun, whatever, they should run for office and make that point. And if that's what happens, I guess the courts will have to understand and discern what is truly constitutional under our Second Amendment.
Senator Blumenthal and Murphy said the same thing.
Exactly.
How about what happened? The girl who worked at CBS, she was fired on Monday. She put on Facebook she was not sympathetic to the victims. She's only worked there for a year. They said this violated their standards, and she's no longer with CBS. But she said, I'm actually not even sympathetic because country music fans often are Republican gun toters.
Well, number one, she actually is right about country music fans. There are a lot of Second Amendment believers and a lot of gun owners. But I loved how CBS responded. They fired her, but they said, well, she only worked here for 1 year. I mean, imagine if she said something that was homophobic, anti-immigrant. They would be like, they wouldn't care. She worked there for 5 minutes. She'd be gone and it should be denounced. It's one person. It's unfortunate for her. She's misguided. But again, in the moment of evil, I tend to try to look past that and I try to look to what really was amazing in that response. And I think a lot of Americans are they're tired of this, the left-right, all the time. They're tired of it. I mean, we have to have debate. We should have vigorous debate. But it's despicable. Hillary Clinton's comments despicable. The Democrats today saying we're not going to join a moment of silence because Republicans are not going to do anything. Okay.
Do what?
Is that okay? Don't join a moment of silence. I hope that makes you feel better. I don't think it probably makes most Americans feel better.
Steve, if you listened to the president's comments yesterday, and Steve Scalise, who was just a victim of a shooting yesterday as well, and the way he was received by both sides when he came back heroically in crutches, my hope is the president brings that sense of spirit to Puerto Rico and then back here in Vegas. Do you think we might be at a turning point where politics will finally look as petty as it is?
Well, I think the president will honor those who lost their lives, but he's also going to thank those first responders, the guardian angels we were talking about a little while ago. But at the same time, I've already talked to a couple of the lawmakers here in Las Vegas, and I said, okay, I was pre-interviewing them during the commercial, and I said, all right, you know, there are people in Washington, they're talking about gun control, they're talking politics. Do you feel like that is appropriate right now? And he said, you know what? No. For us to be on the ground in Las Vegas doing that before people are even buried is inappropriate. And so, in deference to them, I'm with them.
They hadn't even removed all the human remains from the site when Hillary Clinton was making her idiotic comment about the silencer. I mean, people want politicians to just take a breath for the most part. And look,
at least for 24 hours.
Again, if they want to push gun control legislation, they should do it. I mean, we have a democracy. They can push it. They can make their points. They can be very impassioned. That is our government. That is our representative democracy. But we do have a constitution. We do have a Heller decision on the books, and I guess we'll see where the courts take any legislative action that comes from this.
Right. Just tell me how it relates to stopping the next one, because I have yet to see a solid argument on that. Laura, thanks so much.